Now I know what some of you are thinking as you're coming into this video, at least the Samsung hardcore fans, the Samsung Knights as we call them. You're upset. You're looking at the thumbnail and the title, you're all upset, you're ready to leave a hateful comment because you hate when someone says something bad about Samsung or their phones. Here's the thing, for everyone else that's kind of reasonable and rational and actually pays attention to the world, this video is going to make all types of sense. It's actually going to make sense, regardless if you're a fan of Samsung or not. Heck, the Galaxy Note, whatever they're going to call it, I would buy it if it comes out this year. But it's not a good idea, financially, for Samsung to do so. Now, that's going to hurt some people's feelings. I don't know why, because some of the people on the internet just need to growl about something. I understand you've been caged up in your house for the last couple of days or even weeks, depending on when you watch this, so you're going to be extra grumpy. Sorry, can't help you with that. What I'm going to tell you is why it's super smart, from a business standpoint, for Samsung to either wildly delay the Galaxy Note S20 or whatever they call it, the 20 Note, who cares, whatever they call it, or delay it altogether. I mean, like, into next year. That actually might be the smarter move. Of course, I'll tell you why right after this.
This is, you know you listening to Travis.
What up, players? Welcome back, and for all you new people, welcome. My name's Travis, and I do tech videos every single week and have a blast doing them. If that sounds like fun to you, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Anything I talk about will be in the description below, but for now, let's just get into the video. Now, there's a lot to take in here, so I'm going to try to take my time and explain it to everyone who has enough common sense to listen to what I have to say. You may not agree with the overall premise that the Note 20 should be absolutely canceled or delayed or whatever. That's fine. You don't have to agree with me. But there's some facts I'm going to tell you that you cannot deny. You can't deny the facts. And at the end of the day, Samsung is a business company. They don't really care if you're a fanboy or on a bunch of forums leaving hateful comments. They're not paying you for that. Actually, it's kind of a waste of your time. I've done videos about this before, the whole brand loyalty thing. I'm kind of known for these videos. Maybe you should watch one of those. But let me just explain it to you this way. This isn't about the phone being the best phone of 2020. This isn't about the phone being better or worse than Apple's phones. This isn't about any of that. This is about taking a look at what's going on in the world, what's going on financially, and what's going on with Samsung, realizing that maybe they are making a mistake. So let's start with the Samsung Galaxy S20 line of phones. Now, if you don't know, these phones have not sold well. Like, at all. Like, at all. Case in point, the S10 line of phones last year out of Korea sold about 140,000 phones on the first week or so of release. And the S20 line of phones sold 70. That's the lowest amount of phones they've ever sold in a launch time period like ever. Like, it's terrible. It's terrible. And you also have to think of it this way. Now, some people will say, well, but the Ultra is selling very well. Well, selling well is very, very relative. What you're talking about is about 50% of those sales of the 70,000 apparently were Ultras, which means that people who want the cutting edge phone bought more of it, even with the price being ridiculous. But that leaves out the vast majority of the people who would buy a phone, and that's where business and money is made. These phones, especially the really top-end expensive phones like the Fold and that sort of thing, they don't get sold to a very large number of people. When Samsung says something like they've sold well relative to what they should expect, which is not like something that you can land a business on. You're only selling a certain amount of a high-end phone. Samsung makes its money by selling much less expensive phones, including the mid-range phone. Those top-end S10 Pluses and Note 10 Pluses from last year, they weren't like the best-selling phone for Samsung. That's not what made them a whole bunch of money last year. It was a lot of mid-range phones, things that don't cost $1,000. So here's the problem. With the S20 Ultra having some really crazy camera problems that are maybe fixed by a firmware update. I know there's an update out now and there's some battles as to whether or not it actually fixed anything. That didn't review very well. They kind of rushed that phone out. They got it out in time just before the virus thing got out. And while they're blaming the sales on the virus, the reality is that's maybe only partially true. You may remember that this thing shipped out on the February 11th. So there was a ton of time, at least here in America, before we were ever impacted by this to be able to purchase that phone. And some people did. I think Samsung's actually blaming the fact that some of these carriers can't subsidize the phones with deep discounts, but that's mainly because they jacked the prices of these phones up so incredibly high. You're now putting that on the carriers to then subsidize down for people to then be able to afford it? How about not offering expensive phones? But more importantly, the Galaxy Note 20 would definitely be affected, because here's the thing, Notes are always more expensive than the S series. More expensive than the highest S series. And this was the case last year. The S10 Plus sold for about $1,000. The Note 10 Plus sold for $1,100. That is $200 more. You know what the Ultra sold for this year. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to get a $1,600 Note 20 Plus, but you might. And the economy is not going to be in any place to afford and support phones of that price. The Note only last year got a low version, which most people didn't want to buy in the first place. They wanted to buy the Note 10 Plus or nothing. $1,100, ride or die. But that ain't gonna fly this year. In case you didn't know, we are right in the middle of potentially a recession. Like, bad money things are happening right now. And when normally the Note series of phones comes out between August and September, there's actually a lot of predictions that we'll be right smack dab in the middle or just barely coming out of a recession around that time of year. And ain't no one gonna be buying no $1,400 phones right coming out of a recession, or even if you're still in the middle of a recession. So that makes that timing absolutely terrible to release a highly expensive phone. People are gonna be more worried about buying dinner, let alone a $1,400 phone. That's the dumbest thing ever. Like, this is not the phone to release. So maybe later in the year, maybe near Christmas time. Well, there comes a time, and it's a point right before Black Friday, that you need to have already released your phone. So maybe in November. But now you're hedging your bets that possibly, just possibly, the economy has completely come back to a level where people are willing to buy a smartphone, a very expensive smartphone. Now, you got to remember a couple things. Number one, a lot of people who like the Note series actually got the S20 Ultra. I mean, some returned them, but they've already been bitten by that snake. And to do it again, coming right out of not having money for maybe several months, let me just say right now, this situation has cost people jobs. Buying a $1,400 phone will not be high on their list of things to do. The reality is this: selling a very expensive smartphone anytime this year is a bad idea. They already flopped with the S20 line of phones. They started out super high, super expensive, and went to the stratosphere on price, and it just hasn't sold. Again, you can try to blame it on the situation, but it was never really gonna go anywhere. It just wasn't. The reason that the S10 series ever sold at all last year was they started at $749. At least that was reasonable, and it went up to $999. The very top was $999, which is where the very bottom starts this year. And by the way, we've talked about this a million times before. These phones are great for multiple years. If you just bought a Note 10 Plus last year, the chances of you buying a Note 20 Plus this year, Ultra, if they call it an Ultra, it's pretty slim. And if you've been rocking a phone that's like in the S9 or S8 series, like something that's a couple years old, it's likely that upgrading your phone isn't super high on your list anyway, especially coming out of a point where you can't even go to the grocery store without being 6 feet away from somebody. And again, many people will be trying to save money. They're not gonna be interested in a high expensive phone. They're not gonna be interested in buying something that is just another generation of a phone that had all types of problems with the camera. It's just not a smart deal. So I know a lot of you in the comments will say, well, I'm gonna buy one anyway. Well, feel free. If they do release one this year, feel free to buy it. I'll buy it because I'll be curious and I have a YouTube channel. But let me tell you something, if I didn't have a YouTube channel, I would not buy it. It's not a smart financial move this year. It just isn't. What is it going to do that your current phone doesn't do besides 100x zoom that you'll never use? Like, what is it going to do? There's so many great phones at a much lower price right now that you can get your hands on. As a matter of fact, I talked about the Galaxy S10 not too long ago, and you can get that for a great deal. So should Samsung release their top end phone, their highest level phone, their most expensive phone in the year of another recession? Not if they're smart. I want you to really think about this. Right now, you're probably home watching this, wondering how the next couple of weeks is going to play out. There are places in this country right now that are being told you are not allowed to leave your home. Some businesses are closing. Many will be closed by the time we come out of this. Our economy is not going to be the same for quite a while. And while they say it'll spring back, it's going to take time. Things don't just spring back like that. And even if it did, would one of the first things you want to spend over $1,000 on be a smartphone? I don't think so. But tell me what you think. Leave a comment below. Let me know. Are you going to buy a Galaxy Note 20 if they come out this year? And if so, how much money do you got? That's a lot. I mean, I don't know, man. I hope you're saving your money up. And make sure you check out one of these videos. I'm gonna keep making videos while I'm stuck in the house anyway. So, we're gonna keep doing this.